Hello, Holistic Chamber of Commerce family. Welcome to today's Meet a Member segment. I have Whitney Erwin with me, and she's going to talk about Indigenous herbal medicine and healing. Just a little bit about Whitney. She's got a lot of letters after her name. And she's the owner of Four Seasons Harmony Holistic Health Herbs in Ayurveda. She loves to help women with a range of hormonal imbalance symptoms embody more vibrancy, balance, and energy. Her holistic healthcare practice listens to your unique health and wellness needs, and that is key. Someone who listens and provides individually customized clinical support, education tools, and knowledge to overcome fatigue, overwhelm, PMS, anxiety, and a whole other slew of health issues. So, welcome, Whitney.
Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here with you.
So, why don't we start out by you telling us, like, how did you get into this line of work?
Great question. So it's a long story, but essentially, I grew up very healthy and vibrant. I felt like I had so many choices ahead of me. And my second year of college, I got inexplicably very sick, and nobody had any answers. And it took me on an 8-year healing journey, and really not finding a lot of traction until like many years later, like just really struggling during that time, feeling very lost and confused. And I was already a very serious yogi at that point. So I was very interested and committed to showing up to be like of the greatest service possible. And I just felt like I was falling short of that. And so I had so many things that were diagnosed, undiagnosed, and eventually finding my way through that. And then on the other side, and after several years of feeling like I had sustainable healing, then realizing that this was more of my larger purpose to serve, and just trying to do that as best as I can to help other people who may have gone through other challenges.
Yeah, so many of us in the wellness industry, we do what we do because we've had our own struggles. And when we've been able to, overcome them and find some kind of remedy, we're like, oh, we need to share this with the world. So that's fantastic. And I'm curious because you talk about indigenous herbal medicine. Can you kind of talk like what's the difference between like indigenous and like regular herbal medicine? Is there a difference?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, we could, talk for hours, years on the subject. It's massive. But essentially, I highlight that because I feel like it's more of a lost and diminished form of herbology as is currently practiced in North America. And I feel like no matter where anybody is from, like we're all living on indigenous lands, and the medicine, according to all traditional elder and tribal wisdom, is still very much alive. And I feel like it's there and accessible and can help everybody. And that even modern Western herbology, which is very commonly practiced and respected, and I do a lot of that myself, it tends to ignore that part or not talk about it as much. And so I went to a tribal college many years ago in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and I have an honorary degree in Indigenous Studies. I've worked with a lot of herbalists. And so really trying to give life and voice and respect and integrity to that form of medicine. And so it's something anybody can do. It's not exclusive, just like yoga, anybody in the world can do, but it's looking at herbs very holistically. And it's looking at, a deep connection and relationship to place and land. And that there's a lot more going on beyond just the physical benefits of very safe and long-standing herbs that have been in clinical practice. So there's a lot of energetics as well. And, every plant has its own intelligence, and we can harness the prana of nature by taking it in a harmonious and reciprocal way within ourselves. So that's a little bit about it.
It seems like it's really a science. I've dabbled a little bit in it in herbology, and you talk about indigenous, and I used to work in a native Yupik village in Alaska, and a lot of the elders would like be pulling, roots and weeds, and they'd be like, "Oh, you use this for that, you use this," and I just found it fascinating. I mean, nothing stuck, but I can see, the efficacy of using this as a tool to help support your body. I mean, they know what they're doing. Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, it's like thousands and thousands of years old.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I like to call it evidence-based systems. So, cultures have been using like an herb for thousands of years for the same healing purpose. I think we can really trust that wisdom, and there's a lot to offer. And that's a very like popular term these days, evidence-based medicine. And I love modern holistic health research, and I'm like to keep up with all forms of herbal medicine that are new awareness around what they can do for us, new science. However, I feel like it's important to also acknowledge thousands of years of experience and indigenous wisdom. And for me, I see both of them as like equal players. They're very important. And there's a lot of things that can save a lot of time and energy. And there's so many examples of herbs that, in their traditional method of preparation are so much safer than how sometimes they might be used in a laboratory. And so I think that can really help people maximize the benefits and get better results. And also, if you're acknowledging that the plants are in relationship to a lot more in the ecosystem and land, then if we're working with ones that are ethically treated, sustainably sourced, then that's going to give us even more benefit and healing power. And that can also open up our abilities as healers, to be more effective in what we do with others. If not only are we receiving the best medicine possible, but we're working in reciprocal relationship with the lands that we're living in.
You talk about targeting kind of like hormone imbalance, or really looking at that, because essentially that's kind of almost like one of the root causes that I see of like so many things. It's, what's going on hormonally, what's going on the inside. My question, which I just lost, hopefully will come back to me. So when you're targeting that, is that like where you start with people, the hormone piece, or like what is it like to work with you?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, like, have you ever met a woman that has hormonal imbalance?
Oh, hello.
Yeah, and I found out it was almost every woman coming into my practice when I first started, like 2015. In the first year, I was just overwhelmed with the cases coming in, and sometimes it wasn't really acknowledged what was going on underneath the surface. So it's like, okay, anxiety for 10 years that hasn't resolved with a lot of different methods, depression, insomnia, just feeling spiritual unrest or unease. And I just saw this like common unifying pattern over and over again of unresolved hormonal imbalance. And a lot of times really low progesterone. And that was something that a lot of people were seeking me out for, and just really needing a lot of support around. So, fast forward on, over 7 years later, that's one thing a lot of times I'll just initially offer as a starting point. And a lot of women are aware of that, but a lot of women aren't. And so I just gather a lot of information, listen very deeply to their long-term health and wellness goals, and then try to fill in with tools that might be missing pieces for them to start to feel really better and more confident in their bodies, not just for the short term, but for the long term.
Is it safe to say that like women who are struggling with any kind of like health diagnosis or chronic condition, like there is some sort of hormone imbalance that is contributing to that? So is it kind of like across the board?
I see that, yeah, and I mean it's hard to say without seeing each person and
Right.
get their health history. In Ayurvedic medicine, there's a level of subclinical diagnostics, and I do a lot of that with pulse and tongue assessment. And so, a lot of women, once it shows up on blood work, or they're like, my hormone tests are, off the charts, or my thyroid levels have just been so low for years. And they know. And then a lot don't have any of that showing up yet on blood work, but they still feel horrible. They're like, I can't get through the day. My fatigue is just so high. And I take that very seriously, whether it's showing up on blood work or not. And I do love assessment. That it's looking at this long-term idea that every woman, and according to Ayurveda, Indigenous, holistic health systems, can embody hormonal balance. And that's a temporary thing we can work with. And so you don't have to suffer through that. There is a lot of tools and medicine available.
How would someone know if that is an issue for them. And you talked about some conditions, but like what are some of like the key factors that's like, yes, these are signs that, there's a significant hormonal issue there for you?
Yes. So, I mean, essentially, like low progesterone is a big one. It's like almost every symptom you can think of can trace its roots to that. And yeah, how does that show up day to day? I would say fatigue is a huge one. And beyond just I'm tired at the end of the day or the weekends and I need to rest, it's like, a fatigue that you can wake up with in the morning, carry all day long. And even with a lot of other support, just still not resolved. Also, anything related to PMS. So, any level of uncomfortable or painful symptom. Is it, headaches? Is it breast tenderness? Is it feeling a lot of anxiety or overwhelm? That's off the charts, just related to bleeding days or leading up to that. Is it, related to menopause? Is it I just had my baby and I suddenly feel like I'm a completely different person. I can barely move my body again. So it might be a catalyst like that where there's been, significant life change, or it might be more subtle over a long period of time. Yeah.
What about PCOS? Because that's something that I was diagnosed with like a long time ago, and did use like diet and lifestyle to change that. But I feel like that's a huge problem for a lot of women. Um,
Yeah, yeah, I see a lot of PCOS cases. I see, like ovarian cysts and what we call in Ayurveda like excess kapha. Like, and so why is there excess tissue that's being pushed out and that stays there? And sometimes I see that after cesarean births, and I like to teach like the lymphatic drainage scar massage technique that you can do to break that down. I can also see that when there's excess AMA or toxins that are intaking over time, and the body doesn't have strong enough elimination or digestion to naturally release those, and they start to steadily build up over time and can push out PCOS. I mean, there's so many different reasons why, but it is very common. I can never promise anything for anybody, but I have seen tons of those cases, and I've seen a lot of resolution with herbs and diet and lifestyle.
hmm. You talk a lot about women. Do you work with any men too? I'm just curious.
Yeah, great question. I do. I get that question a lot. The vast majority of the time, they come through their partners. It's like the woman leading things. They do their own self-healing journey, and then inevitably the partner is on board too at some point. And it's actually a really beautiful trend to watch. And I, especially as more in women's health, because our hormonal balance is so delicate and so unique. And a lot of my traditional teachings, Indigenous and Ayurvedic medicine, do highlight that there are major differences we need to take into account. So it's not like better or worse, but we're looking at the subtle body as well. And so when I work with men, I just work with them very differently, but there's a lot that we can do. And, something like infertility, that's one of my main specialties. A lot of times the woman takes all of that on, but it's just as much the man. It's half and half. If I'm usually starting with them, it's a heavier hitter way to work holistically for the whole family unit. And then they tend to lead that for the male to do some work too.
So, men, if you're watching this, know that Whitney can help support you too.
Yeah.
I listened to you talk, and I'm just like amazed at the knowledge that you hold, because it's like I've dabbled here and there in some of these things in Ayurveda, but you seem to be such a storehouse of this knowledge and information. So it sounds like your services are like very comprehensive. You talked about like testing, and is this something that you do with everybody? Like you start with like blood work. Talk a little bit about if someone were to enter into a consulting process with you, what would that look like?
Yeah. So I take everybody's health on an individual basis. So it's a very customized approach. I work with a lot of yoga, Pilates teachers. A lot of times people are already very advanced with health and wellness, but they're still feeling like there's something more. And they may want to get more refined. They may want to learn about their Ayurvedic constitutional type, their Prakriti. And so I offer a complimentary breakthrough session for everybody prior to scheduling like a specific, customized program for them. And that's just a time where we can get to know each other deeply. We go, deep into health and wellness goals. We talk a lot about visioning. And then we look at like a clear roadmap forward and how I can, support you to get there. So that is probably the greatest step that somebody could take, is just to open up to scheduling that open conversation. But you can also put a lot of thought and energy into, getting the most value out of that time together, and think about your most pertinent health and wellness goals at this time in your life. And then once I commit to working with somebody, we do a 90-minute comprehensive health intake on the first appointment. I often say this is the healthcare model I never had when I was younger, and why I think I had Hashimoto's. It was undiagnosed for a long time. And thankfully, I was able to reverse that 100% naturally. But it really takes a lot of time and care to listen and go over all the details around not only current, but entire lifetime health history. I mentioned tongue and pulse assessments that I do. And then also I knew some significant markers for women's health, just in case there hasn't been any recent lab work in like the past 1 to 2 years. That can be a helpful missing piece. And just to gather objective information. And then as far as what I do 100% natural offerings as far as herbs, nutrition, lifestyle, mindfulness teachings. So it's a very integrative approach, and I support all fields of medicine. Oftentimes I find this is missing for a lot of women, and they might have some other great care. So I really try to work collaboratively, with your whole healthcare team.
I love that it's a customized approach. I think that so many things these days are like one size fits all. Oh, here's my coaching model to lose weight. Here's, this program, and it's a group program. Well, I think that there are benefits to being in a group. I think when it comes to your health and saying, hey, I feel fatigued, just joining a, group support for having more energy, it's like it doesn't really account for like everybody's specific needs. So I love that you have this approach where you really just, listen to people. What is it that you're seeking, and what is going to be the best path for us to get the information that we need to help solve the problem? So I really appreciate that. Rhonda asked if you worked with women in menopause. And yeah, we talked about that. So Rhonda, yes, she does. So reach out to her. All right, so you talked about this complimentary consultation. I'm going to put it in the chat here. How do people sign up for one of those?
Yes, I am available for any questions after this. Feel free to reach out anytime. And you can independently go to my website and click on the link that Laura's putting in. There's a classes and programs page. And 24/7, there's a brief application process that's available for you to fill out. And once I receive those responses, then I'll provide some openings, to schedule a complimentary breakthrough session. Those last about 45 to 60 minutes, completely non-binding. I want everybody who commits to working with me to feel super aligned. Like this is such a clear win-win. And if I can't support you, I want to support you to the next best resource or step, so that you feel like you have a village supporting you. So that is a free, process to go through. And then you can bring all of your questions at that time. And we can really talk about anything close to your heart that you would like to work on together, and how it can support you.
Your website address, is that Four Seasons Harmony?
Yes.
.com?
Yes, and I can type it in the chat too.
fourseasonsharmony.com. All right, just making sure I have it right. You can put it in there too, just to make sure I spelled it correctly, because I don't have my glasses on. I'm like, did I spell that correct? Awesome. Okay, I got it here. Oh, and then classes and programs. Perfect. So is there anything else that you would like to share with any of your viewers before we sign off for today?
Yeah, well, such a joy to be with you live, and I look forward to hearing more about all of your journeys and what you do and how we can collaborate. There is a lot of other additional information on my website. It's up there 24/7. There's an Ayurveda page, and there's also lots of testimonials. So I often encourage people that may resonate and want, thinking about working together. Please read those over in their words and the results that they've gotten. And that this is a journey for life. And with hormonal imbalance, I found a lot of things that work are just as applicable for menstruation, the onset in the teen years all the way through menopause. But that collectively, lots of women are falling through the cracks, no matter your level of education. So I work with women with PhDs all the time that have struggled with these things. And so I think it's a much larger issue, and that's how we can, collectively support each other. And we heal ourselves, then we also heal our best friends and our daughters and our mothers. And so that's the beauty of doing this. It's really selfless. And I'm here anytime, so reach out. And thank you so much for chatting with me today, Laura.
Yeah. So everyone, if you're listening and this sounds like it's something that you need to jump on, give Whitney a shout out and reach out. This is the second time I believe I had the opportunity to speak with her. I think one was in our networking, all member networking Zoom room. And I just appreciate the very down to earth, like approachable personality and the amount of like knowledge. I'm like reading through the bio and like what she wrote, and I was like, oh my gosh, Whitney knows her stuff. So reach out to her, give her a shout out. Thanks so much, Whitney, for being with us. And HCC peeps, have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much. Take care.